What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 1 of The Overview, a weekly podcast and talk show all about the awesome video game Overwatch. I'm ChanManV, and I'm going to be joined each and every week by my co-hosts here, Ster and Jerma. What's up, fellas?
Hi, I'm
going
Ster
on?
in Jerma.
Hi, I'm Ster and Jerma. We're two guys.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast. Hope you enjoy it. It's gonna be good.
Oh my god, we're going to be doing this each and every week. Holy shit, man.
No, hi,
So-
welcome. How you doing?
Yeah.
This is something we've been talking about for a while now,
Yeah.
and it's cool to do it. It's cool to get to talk about a game we're all excited for, a game we all want to play, a lot, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for even putting this whole thing together, and
Absolutely.
I expect great things.
Well, I expect great things too. So, but no, we're really excited. Like he was saying, we've been playing this for weeks now, and for me personally, I've been actually playing this or at least taking a look at this for a long time. But I figured we just introduce ourselves for those that are just watching and may not know each one of us. I'll start off. I'm ChanManV, of course. I produce and host shows in other games and spaces too, particularly in the past StarCraft 2, and I currently have a weekly podcast talk show called Value Town in Hearthstone, as well as an esports/gaming centric podcast talk show called Unfiltered that I do each and every week. So the overview is going to be joining that kind of lineup that I have each week. So I'm really excited. But I've been looking at Overwatch for the last year and a half, honestly, and really feeling that it was going to be a game that I was going to enjoy once I finally got a chance to play it. And sure enough, at the moment I started playing it, I knew I was going to be super passionate about this game. And it's just the beginning, and this is like the best part, I think, of when we start getting into a game is the very beginning. So have to be passionate about a game to make the content, and that's kind of where I am right now. So really happy.
New things are always great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
All right, who wants to go
it
next?
A lot to talk about.
Who are you?
Who wants to go next? Star, you go next, man.
Who are you? Yeah, the big question is,
am
who are you?
Ster of youtube.com/Ster and more recently twitch.tv/Ster. I've been making TF2 videos for like 5 years, and other assorted stuff. I've been waiting for Overwatch like Chanman for like a year, so it's really awesome to finally get to play it, get into the community like as it's just starting to form. Obviously, not everyone's even gotten to play yet, so it's a small community, but I'm really glad to be in here from the start and try and make something worth everyone's time while we're here. Trying to see where the competitive community goes, get involved as much as I can, and just be a guy who plays Overwatch. That's me.
All right, that sounds good, man.
I can pretty much parrot that. All you really know about me, same thing. TF2 was a huge game of mine. I love playing that game so much. Oh my, I'm getting nervous just talking about the old days. No, I was a huge fan of TF2. Obviously, Overwatch is like the follow up for a lot of people because we know Valve doesn't really count to 3. So the game that like a lot of us are looking forward to is this, and it's been like that for a couple of years now. And I'd love to talk about it. I want to know where it's going. I've been making videos on TF2 for years. Not so much anymore, but that's where I stand now. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and this show, again, guys, is going to be weekly, and we're going to have guests on each and every week, or we're going to try to have one each and every week. And we're going to be discussing all kinds of different topics. We'll have segments that are going to deal with esports, events, community, and then we'll go into some strategies and characters, particularly in the early episodes. I kind of want this to be somewhat of a guide for at least beginners and intermediate folks, just to talk about the characters and maps and what kind of great things you can do on each map, or just from a strategic standpoint, what are some good places and that sort of thing. So we'll be doing that, and then at the very end, we'll do viewer Q&A each and every week, and you can send in your questions via Twitter today. You can send them to me at ChanManV, or you can post them in we actually have a Reddit thread up today. It's been like a long time since I've had a Reddit thread, folks. I don't want to go into as to why, but some of you guys know why. But Ster actually has a Reddit thread up right now, so that we can post some questions in there if you'd like. So let me link that here. But yeah, so go ahead and do that, and we'll try to get to some questions at the very end of the show. But I do want to welcome our first guest to the overview, and he's a longtime friend of mine. He's currently the director of content marketing at Twitch, but for those of you who didn't know him before Twitch, he was actually an FPS guy like for a long time. We're talking since Quake, and then since Quake, he's been an ambassador for FPS, and most notably, he's been casting Dirty Bomb until like recently with Overwatch 2. Now that he's casted a couple events, but I want to welcome to the show, Miss FishStix. Welcome, welcome,
hello.
Welcome.
buddy.
Hey, hi.
Thanks for the
Hey.
invite.
Welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure
Didn't
to
see
be
you
here,
there.
guys.
So, Overwatch, man. What's Overwatch mean to you, buddy?
Oh, it means so much. It's really the amalgamation of a ton of different games and a ton of different communities coming together,
Mhm.
which is really why I'm so excited about the game. At its core, there's something special about any new first-person shooter. Those first couple of weeks, those first couple of months, but there's something different about this one. It's so polished and brings together so many elements from different games that I couldn't be more excited to be part of the community.
Well, definitely happy to have you, and I think as a first guest, I think you're perfect for this because again, things are just starting to establish, and especially from the esports standpoint. And I know from talking to you a ton in the past that we've been dying for just more FPS esports communities, and not just CS:GO, but it'd be nice to have Quake, just the dueling community, but it'd also be nice to have more of a role playing shooter like TF2 and now Overwatch.
Yeah, absolutely. FPS was one of the foundations of modern esports, but for a very long time it was just StarCraft, League of Legends, Dota 2, fighting games. Finally, Counter-Strike has become huge and a dominant force in esports again. But us folks that come from arena shooters like Quake, Tribes, Team Fortress, this is really the game that caters to that audience.
Yeah. Well, why don't we get into some great why don't we get into some of the interesting things that have been going on the last few days, actually. So the weekend beta was this weekend. Lots of new players got a chance to finally get their hands on Overwatch, and there are a lot of feedback and even events this weekend too. So why don't we start off with the events, and then we can get to the craziness, which was just everybody's feedback this weekend. So the first official Overwatch event was Sombrero's invitational, 8-team invitational that he did earlier this past week, or last week. It was earlier last week. And it was just kind of something that he put together. Sombrero, for those of you who don't know, he actually works for Razer, so he's been somebody a lot of us in the esports have known for a while, and kind of threw this together. I mean, the production was pretty cool. We got a chance to have casters, so we had FishStix and Ask Joshi casting the matches, and then we had some of the best NA teams. I think we had like currently playing against each other. What do you think of that event, or any of you guys that watched it? What do you guys think of it?
I caught a little bit of it. It was definitely, it's the first ever event ever held for anything Overwatch related at all.
Mm-hmm.
Run by, I think it was just Sombrero running the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit on the sloppy side, I hate to say, but like it needed to happen. We need these events to happen so that the next one isn't like a disaster. There was no stopwatch for it, which was the big thing that everyone was talking about. That
Yeah.
even though stopwatch isn't in the game yet, you need that to determine who winners could be. Because I was going on about it to you that I didn't understand the rule set to the point where I was saying, if both teams are good, attacking usually wins in experienced teams. Couldn't there have been an infinite grand finals where no one ever won ever? Because there was no way to gauge it besides.
Well, I get the good thing though about all that is you wouldn't have known that if this didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't have known any of this stuff.
I knew that.
Well, but did you really though? You know what I mean? Like,
I
as a
would have
general
to say,
audience, people that were watching that tournament could determine. Okay, now we can feel why this is bad, why it wasn't good, why it was good. There's good and bad. The more tournaments that happen, the better, because then, as an outside audience looking in, we can determine what the good parts and the bad parts are, what needs to stay and what needs to go.
And not everyone even knows what stopwatch is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that is. What is it?
It's a pretty
What the hell does that mean?
unknown game type, honestly. It originated in Wolfenstein enemy territory back in the day. I believe that's
Wow,
the first
okay.
implementation of it.
Mhm.
and it's really the only way you can play a map where one team attacks, other team defends, and have that actually make sense in a competitive level. As Star mentioned, this first tournament didn't have that, and luckily, the matches,
Luckily.
well, I shouldn't say luckily. The matches were kind of one-sided anyway, so it probably wouldn't have changed too much. But in a case where it's like evenly matched teams, like the current rule set is basically a farce. So
Yeah.
stopwatch is more or less needed.
Yeah, I mean,
he says.
yeah. To Jerma's point, I think there definitely is one of these things where we just learn from each event. I think it's progressively gotten better. We've had 3 events now, Sombreros being the first, and then actually FishStix hosted his, which was the first stopwatch event.
How much of hosting your event, FishStix, was you wanted to see how stopwatch would work?
A lot. I mean, I'm just hungry for any competitive Overwatch right now. So no one was hosting a tournament. I stepped in and did it. That's really the only reason I did it.
Yeah.
But that's good though. That should happen a lot more often.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's that doesn't need to, everything doesn't need to be so official. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is the first official. If the more third party in quote tournaments that happen, I think is better for the community.
Oh, absolutely. And Blizzard is completely supportive so far. Like they want third party people to be empowered to do this. Like they're not going to jump in yet. I mean, obviously they know that we don't have the proper tools.
Yeah.
We're basically fudging stopwatch mode right now.
Yeah.
Like there's some really awkward stuff with overtimes, for instance. It just doesn't really make sense within the scope of stopwatch normally. I actually do see some people in chat asking what is stopwatch.
Yeah, definition.
So maybe we should just take a second to do that. Okay. So basically, you have a map. It's got a set number of objectives. Usually in Overwatch, it's either just escort the payload, capture one objective, then escort the payload, so on. It's basically a progression. So one team attacks, one team defends. The only way to actually make this, to judge how 2 teams do on this map on a fair level, is to let both teams attack, have their turn attacking, and both teams defend. So first, Team A will attack, Team B will defend, and then they'll go through the map at a certain rate. They'll usually try to complete it, and then at the end they'll set a time. Usually, they don't always. I mean, it depends on the game. I've played a lot of defensive-oriented games where you don't see a lot of.
I mean, they'll usually try. Sometimes they don't try.
They always try, but once the Team A has finished attacking, they swap sides. So then Team B is attacking, Team A is defending, and then Team B will try to either beat that time, complete the map faster than Team A did, or make it further than they did if they didn't end up completing it. So that's stopwatch in a nutshell.
Okay.
Yeah. Got it.
I think they got it. Definitely a good definition of it.
No, I guess we're talking about it. We can bring it up with stopwatch, right? Do you see any other like modes? Is that like the standard right now? Is that going to be the standard, or is Blizzard, do you think, going to add any potential more game modes that will be better for a competitive?
Well, 2 points. One, which we're going to, I think, talk about in a moment, is that Jeff did say they are looking to adding stopwatch to the game officially, so that it will be officially supported. And the only other way stopwatch isn't going to be the kind of competitive standard is if they do add like a King of the Hill, because then it's just like best 2 out of 3. How many like teams won the King of the Hill? But they haven't still officially said that's going to be a game mode or what a new game mode would be, other than we're thinking about one.
Well, how does it work in competitive TF2? I mean, you have payload maps in competitive TF2. How's that scored?
It's scored by stopwatch.
There you go.
That's exactly what it is. It's built into the competitive multiplayer mode that you can set on the server, and it's just whoever attacked better wins.
Yep.
Is the fastest.
Makes sense.
I want to
Makes a lot of
interject
sense.
really quickly because Jeff Kaplan, I believe you're talking about this thread on Battle.net, which I've posted in chat.
Yeah.
Jeff Kaplan says, yes, it is on our radar. So it's kind of vague.
Everything is vague. What do you mean?
Like everything they say is like that, though. Yeah, I mean, all the things that they've talked about have been like it's on quote our radar, and we've heard about like the Torbjorn and Bastion changes they were talking about. That's like on the radar, kind of. But it's like there's no determination if things are actually going to get put in the game in a timely fashion, I guess you could say. But let's just hope it is put in a timely fashion because this type of stuff needs to be in the game.
What was your issue with overtimes? Because at a certain point, you can just look and say, sure, they were in overtime, but you can just look at the time and say it was still slower. What was the actual issue?
So the issue with overtime is that if Team A attacks and then has a minute and 30 seconds of overtime, which we actually saw in the first map of the grand finals of my tournament, Hubris ended up completing the map in about a minute and 45 seconds of overtime. And that meant that they set a time of 11 minutes and 45 seconds. So the problem, I guess, is that if not Enigma had made it close to the end of the map, but had somehow not activated overtime, they wouldn't have 11 minutes and 45 seconds.
Well, isn't that a non-issue? Because then if they complete it faster than them, which is the end determining. That's all that matters.
That's true, but if they make it close to the end and it's like, oh, they almost could have done it.
Well, they could.
Really...
Well, they didn't do it.
Yeah.
Looking back again, you asked how it works in TF2.
Yeah, it's a
if you
double
complete it, that's all that matters. If the other person doesn't complete it, then it's based on a check mark. Like, could you do that checkpoint? And they couldn't, so they would just.
Yeah, and that's okay. It's just not what I'm used to coming from Dirty Bomb, Quake Wars, Enemy Territory, because there were no overtime mechanics.
In Dirty Bomb as well.
No, actually, they did end up adding overtime, like in a recent patch, but I don't know. It's not a big issue.
I love
either way,
overtime.
but it brings up questions. Me too.
I love
Overtime's
overtime
like
too.
Overtime's like one of the best parts of the whole game.
Yeah.
It is the most.
I've got some issues.
Really?
I disagree.
I think it sets up very
overtime's the best.
exciting moments in the game.
It does.
Oh, yeah.
I think so, but I think the better people get at exploiting overtime, there may need to be a way to, like, the longer you're there have been like 6-minute overtimes, and I feel the longer you're in overtime, it should just stop resetting to the maximum amount of time left to capture. Because I feel like with May and all the tanks, and how May can just freeze herself and never die, and then lock herself in a corner, and you could have multiple Mays doing that over the course of 10 minutes. There needs to be some sort of like exponential less overtime. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe, but I mean, how often is that going to happen? Like, how often?
When it does happen,
overtime.
I don't know. I think the better teams get, the more you're going to see it.
To his point, if it just happens once, it's pretty terrible.
I mean, I have to agree. You know, I'm not used to playing games with overtime mechanics, but I do agree with Jerma. I think it makes for some of the most exciting moments. In my tournament, it was overtimes. It was Hubris pushing into overtime on the second to last checkpoint, and then also in the final checkpoint, which was.
I'm not saying as a whole.
So epic.
Yeah, I'm saying as like, if you're 3 minutes into overtime, the overtime should become more difficult to reset. Because 3 minutes in is like, okay.
The enrage timer on overtime.
Yeah, you
I
hit the
see what you
rage
mean.
timer.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, there should just be a set amount of overtime. Right?
Yeah, that could be like, I could see that.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But I do.
I think even
in
again.
general.
Yeah, I think that brings up the hype again. That they're getting close to the 3 minute. Like, it's going to start being more difficult. They need to do it now. Other than how much longer can they honestly keep jumping Winston on this payload?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, another Mercy revive. Oh shit.
Yeah.
We're going into another overtime.
All right, so
Bring up the mercies.
we had another event this past weekend. So this is the first European one. It's all these first, right? And so the first European one, and it was done by ESL. So there was actually a production team behind this one, and the biggest, well, sort of.
They were in a studio.
They were in a studio, but
my bedroom.
well,
That's another first.
They might have had one other person
studio.
running production too, maybe, but the one big difference I feel like with their cast was the casters, right? They had who would they have? Jeez, they had Mitchie, right, and Jason from
no relation to Jeff.
Yeah, Jason, no relation to Jeff Kaplan.
I was
So
actually
Jason
going to ask you
Kaplan.
that. I was like, is that like his son or something? Like, who is that?
Yeah. Hey, brother, can you host this tournament? I'm so busy.
Exactly. No, but both of these guys, they've had lots of experience casting in other games. Like Jason with League of Legends, Mitchie with World of Tanks, and seeing the like these guys who are professional casters and have been paid in the past, basically doing Overwatch was pretty eye-opening. I mean, I felt like.
What are you trying to say, Chris?
I'm trying to be nice, Ben. Okay, I'm just trying to be nice. All right. No, but no, their casting. I think Mitchie's like play-by-play was crazy good when I watched it. And
no, those guys did a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So seeing that on Overwatch, even though the spectating mode still is very, very lacking, was pretty interesting. One thing they did use was the third party or the global kind of camera. I think a lot more than they used the first person point of view camera. What do you guys think of that? Like, which one do you prefer personally?
So I had the pleasure of running the camera for
Oh,
my tournament
gosh.
a couple days ago.
Yeah.
It's really funny because you run into the same problem in pretty much
Mhm.
every FPS that's not Counter Strike. In Counter Strike, they only do first-person cameras. It's just
Yeah.
how it is. But I did this in Dirty Bomb, and we did this in several other games in the past. I personally prefer a mix. It's funny though. Every time that you're in third person for more than like a minute, somebody in chat says "Go first person," and then every time you're in first person for a minute,
Right.
somebody says "Go third person." So I think in an ideal scenario, you have a healthy mix of both. I mean, there's just some cases where third person makes it so much easier to follow the action. A crazy team fight at the very end of King's Row, for instance. You know, using third person helped you see what's going on in a lot of ways. But really, in the future, I hope that we see 5 cameramen in a game and a single producer picking from all those shots at once.
I mean, it's such a flashy game that you want to see from like an aerial view. You want to see third-person views. Like Counter-Strike is very much just a highly skilled point-and-click game. You know what I mean? Like team comps, highly skilled. You want to see that first-person mode at all times because you want to see how good the player is. You want to see them landing those headshots. It's a lot different than watching Zenyatta turn into a giant ball,
Yeah.
fly into the team. You know, you want to see the good aerial shot of that. You know, it's a little bit more
I was
bird's
actually
eye, I would say.
Yeah, I was comparing it to Smite to ChanManV. We talked about it the other day,
Yeah.
where Smite is everyone understands the third person perspective, and I think having that relatable like FPS experience for Overwatch is good. But still, when a team fight happens and it's way too hard to understand that game, it zooms out. So like ideally, again, I know from like a casting perspective, even in TF2, a few matches I've casted where it's as just like casting, it's way easier to look at everything from a side
yeah,
view, and you
definitely.
get to see everything. But I think for individual people, like you can explain everything that's happening that they can't see. That helps. But when it gets into the inevitable shitfest,
Yeah.
and there's ultimates everywhere, there should be a second man that can be.
This
switched.
game has a lot of them too. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people, from a spectator point of view, the amount of shit fests that happen in Overwatch. All the
We need a
time.
better word for that.
Yeah, we need a better word for that. Instead of
The casters.
the
Okay, the
high
shit fest is going
intensity-
on now, guys.
The epic moments. I love
those
epic moments.
on screen. No, but I mean, it can be hard to follow, especially if you're like a general audience member or you don't really watch that much Overwatch or you don't really play it that often and you just kind of spectating.
Mhm.
Sometimes you just have no idea what could possibly be happening. But if you're out further, it's a little easier to tell what people are doing rather than a giant screen of colors in your face from like one
It really
person.
comes down to dedicated cameramen and when to switch to them. Because even if you were in first person, again, you could just switch to the Widowmaker during that fight and still get a full perspective of the fight.
Right.
But still be in first person, seeing like, there's the skilled Counter-Strike kind of argument.
Yeah,
where
and that's
Widowmaker
gonna-
is really accurate.
That's going to take a lot of experience, and it's going to take cameramen that really know the game, when to switch to fair for that kind of overhead view too. I mean, that's like a cameraman
now,
itself, right?
Yeah, no one understands the flow of Overwatch yet, like who to look for in when they're casting, and it's hard to get a good view of everything. We just need more experience doing it and more people working on more professional.
Oh god, I can't wait for that moment when a TriCaster is brought in. We have a real
It's soon, man.
professional production.
Yeah.
Because you could imagine things like maybe you're in first person, but you have picture-in-picture of an overview, or maybe there's a crazy moment where maybe Blizzard ends up building something into the game where you can tell when a ultimate is dropped. Maybe you have multiple cameramen following multiple people, you know, as they drop their ultimates. I could even see like a partitioned 4 screen or 4 perspectives at once, like. That type of stuff is possible
That
and
never
might
works.
actually be awesome.
That's too
Someone tried
much.
that.
I think
can't
that's way too
remember. I
much.
Who knows? I don't know. I'm just bullshitting here.
I know.
Okay?
There is
And
a
yeah,
lot
these
to
are good.
try, and
Like,
that's the point.
there's a lot of different
Yeah.
like there's been a formula for a long time, right? There's been like the first person, third person, third person, maybe area, but stuff like, I mean, Smite did it for, you brought up Smite. Smite did a thing for a while. They kind of overdid it a lot, but remember during the team fights, they would slow it down.
I was gonna bring that up as well. That's another thing that.
They
Wait,
would
the
do slow
production?
motion.
Oh.
They had
Yeah.
their replay system. They could slow in real time. They could slow down the game in slow motion. Like if you had a Thor coming down with an ultimate, you could slow mo it so you could see exactly what was happening. The casters could tell you exactly what was happening, and it was awesome. But they got to a point where they did it so much that people started to get annoyed with it. So,
Yeah.
but
It's
stuff like that
pretty
is
badass,
awesome.
though.
Like
It is like
really
Max
cool.
Payne style, like all this.
it really was, and it made the ultimates, it made the team fights that much more like epic because you could actually feel, okay, I can look around and see where everybody is on this map. And it usually what a team fight in a typical mobile or even an FPS like a game like Overwatch is like probably like 8 seconds long, maybe like
Yeah.
5 to 10 seconds long total.
Mhm.
And the amount of information, the amount of stuff that's happening at the same time is extremely overwhelming sometimes. So
Well,
if you had like a slow-mo feature, it would be kind of cool to use.
Again, there was another system that's brought up that TF2 uses where there is a delayed kind of kill feed for the casters. I guess. Yeah,
I heard
where
about
you
this.
can see beforehand, like if 4 people
Oh.
instantly die to one person, or you can see
Ah.
like, oh, someone got 4 headshots in a row. I'm going to spectate them, so you know ahead of time who to look for.
Oh, that's smart. Actually,
And
that's
I
really
think
good.
to the same thing Jerma is saying, if you see like there was a Zarya ult and the whole team got wiped, you might want to slow it down and see how it
You
happens.
might want to switch to that
Or you
cam.
could grab the perspective. Like, there's a lot that can be done here, and the casting for Overwatch and the spectator mode is in its infancy. Because isn't there even some like huge bug right now
Oh, there's a couple
Yeah.
of them.
to spectate?
Awful,
Yeah.
terrible bug. But actually, can you explain how this TF2 thing works? There's like a TV server, and then I don't
I've
even.
never actually used it. I know it
Ah,
exists and I know what it
okay.
accomplishes, but
Okay.
I wouldn't be. The
So it's
person
not
to-
built in. Is this like a third party thing, or I mean, what is
It
this?
is definitely a third party
Okay.
plugin that kind of, I guess, uses.
Yeah, it has to
this-
buffer, right?
Source TV has a delay, maybe I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I think it's like
It's about a 30-second
Someone's in
delay
the game
telling you.
server, and then the casters are in Source TV,
Yeah.
and then
Mhm.
somehow it gets communicated.
I
There has to be
apologize for
some.
not
Yeah,
being
there has to be
smart
some middle layer
Yeah.
there.
Wow, you don't even know.
We could just ask
Unbelievable.
Justin.
I mean,
after
that
this.
sounds
You guys-
amazing.
Yeah, it does.
Hey,
It sounds
Lang.
perfect actually for
Hey, call up Lane, get him on speaker.
yeah, yeah. No, I can see that. I mean, directors for Overwatch productions are going to be very skilled people. I mean, skilled at the game, and somebody who can just even envision just how just team fights are going to go. Based on who has their ults and that sort of thing, and things like that. Those kind of feeds, I think, will help out like just immensely. So I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about the production of Overwatch. I think the production of Overwatch could be one of those things that push esports production to another level too.
Well, there's a lot of potential there, even since before the beta came out. I was
Yeah.
always saying, if they can track what the play of the game was and replay it, there's the whole game from everyone's perspective is being recorded somehow.
Yeah.
That there's gonna be some tools eventually to use that. I
Yeah,
assume
they're
it makes
substantial.
sense. Why would it be there if not?
yeah. All right. Well, that's Overwatch events, and again, I've planned to see a bunch more. I mean, right now, like we're having events with no prizes, and everybody's just happy just to see structured events. And I think that will go on for a little bit longer. So if you guys want to do an event, I mean, if you want to do events with prizes too, that's cool. Like start it, just go and do it. It's it definitely take a weekend or so, but it's not too bad. I mean, your event, Ben, I think was like a few hours, right? Like 4 hours. or
Yeah,
5 hours.
yeah.
That's not even
Pretty damn
bad
short.
At all.
I am used to casting for like 5 to 7 hours, so
Mhm,
like
yeah.
a 3.5, 4 hour cast is like, woo, this is awesome.
Definitely.
But
easy.
but I would never ever recommend to anybody that they produce the stream, cast the tournament, and admin at once. That was
I've done that.
terrible.
I've
idea.
done that,
It's
dude.
tough.
I mean, it actually
It's
worked
really
out
hard.
because the teams are really self-sufficient and they just want to play games, so they kind of set up their own matches, which I'm so thankful for
Mhm.
because it went remarkably smoothly, everything considered, but it was not easy.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about the community now too. The players they want it. They want this to go well too. So they're willing to help out in any way they can. Also,
Do we want to talk about the results of these tournaments at all?
if you want to, just real quickly.
I mean, it's so early that we can't talk too much about the teams. I mean, to be frank, almost all of these teams are random mixes of players anyway.
Yeah.
Like, Not Enigma has won the 2 North American tournaments. I mean, I don't know if people realize that name is like a joke name that they came up with last second to sign up for the Sombrero
I'm
tournament.
surprised it stuck for this.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
so
sticky forever
that's just
now.
what they're called. Liquipedia has an entry for Not Enigma now. Like Ghosted Gamers has an entry for Not Enigma. So most of these teams are complete mixes, but in North America, Not Enigma have been completely dominant so far. Hubris gave them a run for their money in my tournament this last weekend, but it was still pretty one-sided.
Yep.
But not as one-sided as the European tournament, where Melty shit stomped
Yeah.
the next team. It was not even remotely close. So that was insane to see. Melty is literally looking like they're on a different level from everyone else in Europe right now.
Who would you say? I mean, it's very early in this. It's obviously still the beta, but who would you say are the top like players right now in like these tournaments, or the people that are competing at all?
That's a great question. I mean, I'm pretty biased towards
Yeah.
the Hubris guys. 'Cause I've known them for a really, really long time, and I've played with them in several different games. They've got some incredible players on their team. Tailspin is one of the sickest Pharahs in the game. Cool Matt is an incredible sniper. But if you switch over to not Enigma, you got to give it up to I was about to say Seagull. You got to give it up to Seagull.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen some like awe-inspiring gameplay. Like I don't think he actually played that well in my most
Yeah, in your
recent
tournament,
but-
he didn't
but-
need to. No.
yeah, he didn't really need to, but his Pharah, I think it was during scrimmages I was watching the week prior against the Blizzard guys. Like his Pharah is actually crazy. His Junkrat is actually crazy. And then the other person I'd shout out is Kudo Chop. His Hanzo is ridiculous, even though Hanzo is kind of like not that good right now. His
I don't know how I don't understand. Like we'll go over Kudo Chop real quick. I don't understand how you could be that good at tracking those arrows. Like we've played in many games with him, and he doesn't miss. He does not miss those arrows. Like you will
You
turn.
sound traumatized.
Oh my goodness!
It's an Uber fan here, dude.
He's so good. He's so good. And when you look, when you watch somebody that does that, and you're like, oh, he's playing. Oh, I'm getting destroyed by Hanzo. Oh, come on, I'll do it too. And you try to play Hanzo the same way Kudo does.
yeah.
You miss like 40% of your arrows. You're not really playing that well. He does not miss. It's crazy. I look forward to what he does with that character in the future because it's crazy what he does.
I just want to give one last shout out to Mesrar from Not Enigma. I think he's definitely the best Reinhardt in the game right now.
Yeah, he is
And
very good.
Reinhardt is honestly one of the best characters in the game. So he's like a complete game changer.
I mean, that whole team's. I mean, Clockwork's good too, man.
Oh
I
yeah,
was gonna say, I don't know if it's
It's-
Clampok or Clamp OK.
Clamp. Okay,
I'm sure you-
Clamp.
what is
Just
it?
call him Clamp.
Clamp. He did really well, and
Yeah.
I think everyone was giving him the play of the game as well for like the 8th
Yeah.
Deadeye.
Yes,
Yeah,
tournament.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was insane too.
yeah.
Wow, look at all these good beta players. Wish I could play. I'm not even in the
Sir, you should be playing.
You're
I mean,
a good
you,
player.
You played in the last one, right?
I would,
Wait,
I would say the Star. You are one of the top players. I would say that. Just
Well, I
So
have to
Stur's
play
just
with
looking
people
for a
first.
team because right now, like FishStix was saying, I mean, these teams are like kind of randomly put together. I mean, they're generally in like from the same game. Like there'll be this Quake team, right, and there'll be a TF2 team, and that sort of that thing. But right now, it's just like a lot of people mixing and
Well,
matching, and
The other thing too that with the state of the competitive teams is not Enigma. They've known each other for years.
Yeah.
You say you've played with Hubris for years. There isn't another team like that. It's gonna be a while before, like Pub Stars was second place in your tournament. They didn't know each other. I
Yeah.
played with some of them in this past tournament. I didn't know any of them. Like, the team composition, the working together isn't there for anyone else who hasn't already played together in another game for years. So it's going to be
Yeah.
a while before I think you see
yeah.
anyone else competing with them. Just
Well,
on
the
that
game has to open up, right? The game,
Yeah,
the game
yeah.
has
that
to
too.
open up. There are
We
people that
don't-
have their teams they play with that can't even play with their friends or play with other people on their teams
Yeah.
because they're not in the beta. So
yeah.
once
Yeah.
it opens, we'll see a lot more of that.
And that was what was so great about this weekend, right? Is that a lot of us got a chance to finally play with our friends, or got a chance, whether they were actually high, very high skill players or even just casual players. And myself, I was playing all weekend just because, again, had a group of friends that hadn't gotten a chance to play, and guys I usually game with anyways. Finally getting a chance. So this weekend was personally a lot of fun for me. And we'll get into the community in just one sec, but how was it for you guys? Like, just did you get a chance to play with other people, or are you still doing your own thing?
I did.
Yeah.
I wish, what? These beta weekends are great, but I wish almost that they lasted a little longer. I know they can't, but I had a friend that got into the beta and we played for like one day, and then it was like, oh, see you later. Like, we can't play this game anymore together.
Yeah.
I'm glad we had fun though, friend.
Did you actually get to play? I remember up until like last night you were saying we haven't even played yet.
Yeah, we did.
I played till like
Oh.
8 a.m. this morning because somebody basically only had it until like 8 today. So yeah, that was definitely really, really fun. But because there were a lot of people playing, there was definitely a lot of feedback from the community, which is good. I think generally speaking, the more people that play it, the more feedback Blizzard gets. It's definitely a good thing. But what I noticed this weekend was that basically from Friday night to Saturday morning, that kind of 24-hour period or 20-hour period, there was like extreme negativity, like on r/Overwatch. I mean, like, this game sucks. Like, I'm finally getting a chance to play this, and I can't believe people are hyped about this. This is, this and this and this, and we'll talk about some of the things. But basically, about 10 threads were just crazy negative things.
And I can't even imagine the amount that were like deleted.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
People were either upset that they weren't in the weekend, or they found a reason somehow to complain that they were.
Yeah.
There was no in between.
And of course, we picked that day to actually try to post about the overview on Reddit. So we were like, oh no, we should probably just wait until like some of this.
Finding
is over.
About the beta was very important.
But the funny thing is that then, like Saturday night or Saturday afternoon, Total Biscuit decides to make a video about it, and
good old
post it on
it.
our Overwatch, and it was generally positive. Or his review of it was positive. And then all of a sudden, the negativity just started to dissipate, like Reddit, and then things just started to stabilize again on
We've
Reddit.
seen this so many times on Reddit where it's like crazy negativity, and then somebody makes that one thread that's like, "Hey guys, I'm having a great time,"
I know,
and then
right?
everyone who's having a great time immediately latches onto that thread, and then all of a sudden it's like it's just this teetering.
It's called circle
scale
jerking.
Yeah, I guess so. Negativity, and then responded by positivity, and then negativity.
Yeah.
Also, keep in mind though, like a lot of the criticisms and negativity weren't necessarily unwarranted.
No, they weren't.
And a lot of the players that got into the big open beta may not have been as obsessed with Overwatch as we've all been, and following it and caring about it.
Yeah, that's true.
Obsessed? No.
No, it's not like you play like 12 hours a day every day of this game. No, but really though, like you're talking about a group of people that just got access to a game potentially that they heard about. Oh yeah, I've heard about this game. I play Counter-Strike. I play whatever other game you happen to play, or TF2 or something. I got into the beta. Don't follow the game very much. And you see all these things that you're so used to that and you're just like, where are they? Like, why are these things not here? Why do people like this game? Like, I don't understand. Like, if you haven't been following this game as intently as we all have, you'll have those criticisms, and they're not unwarranted. They really aren't.
Yeah, and let's talk about some of those criticisms. And
The big one.
Yeah, the big one. So, I mean, there were a few of them,
No
actually.
Again, I feel like Jerma is right that a lot of people probably came in, weren't aware of the situation. There did used to be a kill feed in the game that I guess right now they're reevaluating.
So just to like
If it's
kind of
useful.
throw them out there, some of the things that people were complaining about was the lack of kill feeds, KDR, a scoring system, any kind of just system to represent how you did in the game from the standpoint of just an overview of everybody. So let's talk about that. That's the big one.
Again, they used to have a scoring system beforehand that gave a lot more information. And the week before the beta, they talked about how they were pulling it out and they were testing out this new system that even then they said might not be permanent, and they don't know what they're going to do. So much of what Overwatch comes down to, if you like pay close attention, like we all are, too much attention, the devs always seem to have this attitude of like, we don't know what we're doing. We hope it's good. We're gonna try a couple of things, and it might be a while before we decide it's not good.
Yeah, I think you bring on a good point there. Is that when games are in beta, there are definitely very different forms of beta. There's one that's probably closer. So Hearthstone obviously is something I do. I think the Hearthstone beta was more of a very close to complete product. There weren't things that could change very much. I mean, they did change the ladder a little bit, but for the most part, that was pretty close to being done. But I think Overwatch beta is very much unfinished. You know what I mean? Like this next 6 months, they really want to clean, get things tightened. I mean, add some things that are,
even the
haven't
voting
even created.
system.
Yeah, even the
along with
voting
whole
system.
Scoreboard.
Yeah, so I think with Overwatch,
That's
it's
never been done before. I'm sure they wanted to test out how people actually interacted with it. And I'm sure they have that data, and we'll see what comes of it.
yeah.
But there's plenty of time to readjust things, and I don't think they understood how big the backlash would be to no kill feed. So
The good news is they've already done it. I mean,
I don't think that's
Yeah, the good news is they've already done it, and it's literally probably not super easy, but it could be probably toggled in a way. Same with the kill feed. The kill feed's actually done too. they could just add that back.
I think Blizzard's doing a weird thing recently over the last couple of years, I'd say. They're dancing around toxicity.
Oh yeah.
They're terrified of toxicity and players being elitist, and I'm better than you, you're worse than me. Look where I am on the market. They don't want that to happen in their games for I don't want to say bad reason or good reason, but it's almost like they're scared of people not doing well in their games to the point where they want to eliminate certain features from the game that are staples of a certain genre. And I can't necessarily agree with it, because if you play any first-person shooter ever, really, I'm talking like I'm thinking any multiplayer shooter that has released in the last 10 years at least, there's always the stats for you to look at and determine how you're doing, how your team's doing, not really determined by a medal that's on fire. I'd rather them do a route that was more, that way than the medals on fire way. And I know that, like you said, Star, that this is all kind of that was like a last second thing that they decided to do. But
for a while too, I would even say I really liked the medals on fire. I liked no kill feed because it made sense to me at first that you can see on the map where your teammates died in the respawn timer. Actually, like on the map, you can see your teammates' indicators through walls. I was like, that's fine. I guess you don't need a kill feed. And then I played 10 hours a day for 3 weeks, and I'm like, I can't understand why there's no kill feed anymore. Like, you need it. There's certain moments, and even brought up for the tournaments, people were saying the big 6K that Clamp got with the Deadeye, no one even knew that he used Deadeye because there was no I thought like a Pharah or someone did all the damage. And it's just
FishStix, thoughts on it?
I mean, kill feed is a no-brainer in my point of view. From a player's standpoint, you want to know when your team just racked up 3 kills. Yeah, I mean, you could argue that your team should be communicating about this thing, but what about public games? What about the competitive scenario where you might not have time to call that out? You want to know that you just got 2 or 3 kills in succession, because that means you should push. Or, for the same reasons, if 2 or 3 of you die, you know that you want to hold back and wait for the next spawn wave. From a caster's perspective, though, this is like nearly essential. Like, it's really, really hard to cast when you don't know who's dying, where, when, by what means. I mean, for one, the smaller like ego things, like attributing those kills specifically to Clamp, knowing where exactly they came from, is good and important. But I don't see all the kills on a map. When I'm watching first person, something happens off screen, I don't know what's happening. So from a caster's perspective, kill feed is completely essential.
You have to constantly press tab, and even then, I think how the people are grayed out when you press tab. It's even hard to see at a glance who actually is dead on like the enemy team. They're just slightly opaque, a little bit.
With a matchmaking system in the game, right? Like if they're gonna do like a full-on MMR matchmaking system, do they really have to be afraid of people playing poor? You're gonna be queued against players of similar skills, so why would they be so afraid of that? Like if you have a bunch of bad players, let's say IQ. I'm not a great player in Overwatch, right?
Yeah.
If I queue into a matchmaking system, we're gonna all be essentially what we're supposed to be is equals, right? So is it really that big of a deal? I'm not gonna be in a queue with like Tailspin. That's just not gonna happen when the MMR comes out. I'm not gonna have the opportunity to be like so far down on the bottom with a good matchmaking system that I'm gonna be made fun of or someone talking shit to me because, oh wow, you're playing so poorly.
Also, will you even care if they did?
Not really. I mean, like, sure. Is somebody gonna say in a game, like, let's say I pop Star, you've already done it, you've already said it. Like if I pop ult as Lucio and I just don't do it and it was a bad ult, well, like, nice ult, Lucio, like, fuck you, it's like all right, okay,
That's a good impression.
but it's gonna happen, you know what I mean? It's just going to happen.
I mean, so let's kind of get, I guess, down to more of the root of it. Do you think it's more of a toxicity thing, or do you think it's more they want the design of the game to be focused on the objectives, kind of like Heroes of the Storm, right?
It's probably a little both.
Everyone is assuming right out the gate that this is because of Blizzard thinks this, Blizzard thinks that. That might not be the case. I mean, I think that's a very valid point, Chris, ChanManV, is like maybe they just want to de-emphasize it. Maybe it's not about like the toxicity thing. It's really about emphasizing team play or whatever. I don't know. everyone's just assuming like, oh, Blizzard doesn't
Well,
want people to feel bad, but that may not actually be the reason.
I know we've even heard Jeff say this, and like I think a lot of Blizzard echoes this, and I even agree that for Hearthstone, one of the smartest things that they did was take out a team chat or like a chat to be able to actually talk to the other person. The well played was a really good move by them, but I don't think it fits into other games. I've heard a lot of criticism from Heroes of the Storm that they're doing the same thing. Anyone who's bad and is getting made fun of, that's going to continue being like a valued member of the community, whatever you want to call them, is eventually going to try and get good.
Mhm.
And when they are, they're going to want these same things that we all want. You know, I don't feel like they're trying to protect people very hard from that.
There's a big difference, I think, in my opinion, between like toxicity and just general speak in a team, right? Like obviously, I'm against, extreme toxicity. People just like not stopping, typing, writing awful things in the chat to people. Like that's obviously something that I would like to see avoided. But just general team talk, you can't avoid somebody from saying.
So here's
the
the thing: like you can turn those things off.
Wait,
Right.
The other thing too,
That's,
once
I know
but
it's like
the system that they put in recently, where you can rate someone positive or negative, works really, really well. I think their matchmaking so far, even though it's a limited pool, it seems to be a pretty good system. Occasionally, you get matched against a 5-man queue, and you don't even want to play the video game. But like rating someone negative, if that guy gets enough negative ratings, I don't think it's going to be too hard to look at and just see that guy is like 1 in 1,000, an asshole.
Doesn't Dota do a low priority queue for toxic players?
Yeah, it does as well.
So I mean, there are systems in place that can be done that you don't have to completely design your video game around it. In like you were saying, FishStix, that might not even be the case, but I know that they have stated that they want to try to avoid toxicity. They have stated that before. So I don't know if that's the number one reason why, but it's definitely at least on the map for them.
It's a noble cause for sure, but the problem is like if you have to do it at the expense of gameplay for a large population of your players or your potential players, then it's not a smart decision, right? So they're trying to figure out a medium between that, and they're having to do that in their other games too, like Heroes too. I don't blame them for trying to do it. It's just a very, very challenging thing to get the right balance.
Again, I don't think it comes down to entirely toxicity. What we started talking about was coddling players. Is that a word?
Yeah, okay.
Treating people too nicely, like giving them the giant 10 kill streak, and when you only did 1 damage to people anyway, but not giving you a kill feed. Like that's the biggest difference between like why is there no kill feed and why is there, if kills don't matter and you're trying to give supports a role and tanks a role, if kills don't matter, why is that big?
Right.
But you want to feel accomplished mid-game. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you can hold down tab and see how you're doing. Even if you have the on fire thing, it's like, that's a good start, I guess. But after the game, when you can see like, oh, how was I doing in comparison? Oh, I got the gold medal. It would be nice to...
Even that is lacking compared to the old scoreboard, where if you you could see how many Discord orbs, how many this, how many that. Well, like if you do a really amazing game as Zenyatta right now, you can't see your damage, which is pretty disappointing.
Well, one of the things they could do also is just what League does. They just show all of these stats. Like there's a bunch of stats. Like how much you healed, how much. I mean, they could do all of those. How much damage you took, how much damage you dealt. And that at least global type of view of stats would be sufficient in my mind. Of at least folks getting a representation of how the game went. Because a lot of times, yeah, you're right. I'll finish the game and I'm just like, oh, I know what these guys did. I know 4 of these stats that they just show here, but I have no idea how everybody else did, and I'm supposed to rate these guys.
And it's almost not even a lot of players, right? When there's a system in place that shows like how people are doing, it's almost like you can't really learn. And you're rewarded all the time. Like Star, you were saying, like, 15 kill streak. It might not even be true, but you're like rewarded. But when you play bad in a game, even there are players that like to help. There are players. If you see that there's like, let's say a Zenyatta that has like low healing or something, and you're like, oh hey, throw that orb on me. Like keep that orb on me. I'm gonna go up to the left. You communicate with your team, and you can help teach people.
I do talk you when we play together and like criticize your Lucio ults like you're saying, but I think at some level you can take that from me. You know how I am.
Oh no, yeah.
I understand why I said the Lucio ult was bad.
It's been like
Like-
4 years. I think
Yeah.
I can take your criticisms at this point.
Yeah, but I don't know. It kind of is at like a certain level stopping people from helping other people because you can't even tell what was wrong.
Yeah.
Like
Agree
if
with
we
that.
lost, why did we lose? I felt like I was doing really well.
Yeah, I had a medal on fire. I had my name was there, and I
Yeah.
got to play the game. But why did we lose?
Yeah.
Well, then
You
the problem is if you found out why, you'd shit talk them all.
But that's not really. I don't even know how true that is though.
Yeah.
But hopefully there's a happy medium in place somewhere soon because it is turning a lot of people off. It is.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that are coming from other
Well, I think,
games.
like again, I think some of these things are.
No, you don't think so?
I think people are latching onto it. I honestly, I don't care that much about the score screen at the end. I'll be honest. I do care about the kill feed, but the score screen at the end doesn't really affect things for me all too much.
Well,
I mean,
but
I would like-
if they never put a kill feed in, how would you
Well-
feel?
I would feel shitty about that.
Right, but I mean
Well,
that's
they
kind of
won't
the, that's
work
kind of the
that
same, and that's in this. He won't go. I won't go to work.
Like-
I'm gonna call in sick.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I
yeah,
think I think
feel like
I
it's
think
insane.
most of us here probably wouldn't care too much about a global score, but I think the casual players would. You know, like guys that just go in there and
I think it's
Yeah.
deeper than the scoreboard. It is the general design consistency that you're seeing with the game across a lot of different stuff that could be hurting it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, how much this is all like assumptions and you don't even know, but how much of this is in place because they want it to be also on consoles as like a casual pick up and play, feel good kind of FPS.
Yeah.
And because
Yeah.
we're looking at it, of course, from like a competitive standpoint. We just talked about all the tournaments and like, oh, PC gaming, yeah. But like,
Yeah, PC.
rules.
how much of what we
PC
want is
rules.
even the market that they're trying to sell the game to?
I think they're trying to sell it to us. I mean,
Yeah,
to
I
me,
would hope so. They, I
Yeah.
mean,
and
they
everyone
are
else
PC.
too. They want to sell it to everyone, but
Yeah,
that's
I
why
guess-
all the characters are like
yeah.
archetypal.
I'm sure for them it's like a
Yeah.
balancing act as well, and we're just watching them
Yeah.
trying to figure it out because they don't know yet. Again,
I'm of a mindset where you can't please everybody.
Yeah.
I think that that's true in anything. So trying to please everyone is always going to leave everybody with something that they wanted that they didn't get.
Yeah.
Right.
Alright.
You can only please as many people as you can as possible while you're taking things away from all of us. You know, the casual people are getting things taken away from. So are the competitive people. When you make a general audience like mainstream, ultra, everybody can enjoy it.
Yeah.
You kind of limit your true market. I think that
Well,
is where you
this
limit.
is another big topic I think we'd wanted to talk about, which is what do we even expect to see in the future that's going to continue to make this mainstream? That you've had some
Feature-wise?
criticisms, Jerma, that they announced there's going to be these 21 characters. That's all we're
Oh.
focused on right now for the
Okay.
moment.
Right.
What else are we looking forward to in the next like 6-7 months before this
Yeah.
game?
Will there be new content basically in
Yeah.
the next 6 months? Which, in the past, what they announced at BlizzCon pretty much is what it is, right? So
Yeah.
it's potentially
see is
6
what you
months of
get.
nothing new. Yeah.
With a game like this, though, my major criticism with how they announced their marketing, I guess, for the game is what they've effectively done is they've said, okay, here's the video game Overwatch. See you in 7 months. And it's like, with a game like this, look at all the popular games that are in this genre. Look at all the popular games that are not even in this genre, but of similar player sizes, right?
Mhm.
We need reasons to stay interested. And if you're gonna throw out these 3 new characters, here's the pricing model, here's what we're doing, and that's it. Well, okay, we're launching in the spring. What else is there to be excited for? You know,
yeah, you have to imagine there's something because they can surely do something in that amount of time, and whatever else they kept secret, they were able to keep Overwatch secret for however many years. But
whatever it is, I just
what's
hope
left
that
in the
it's
bag?
Yeah.
yeah, whatever's inside that bag, whatever's in that they've already taken out the ham sandwich.
Yeah, here's a really really rare weird criticism. They had teased the Winston origin story animation that they're working on at BlizzCon. Not a lot of people actually even picked up on
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about this that much, but it looks really awesome. There's an animation going over the origin story of Winston, and that's a really good place to pick up because he's an important character, and that's like good for the continuation of the game, the origin story, blah blah blah. But even that, I file into the same category of I've read the character bios. I know it's gonna be in the animation, like to a point. You know what I mean? Like that was already revealed. What else? What else is new to us? Anyone who has been following Overwatch.
Well, FishStix,
Uh,
what are your thoughts on this?
So I have been pretty vocal that I don't dislike the single purchase model. Like you a whole game for $40. I don't dislike it. But if you look around and like you said, Jerma, the common trends for basically every other multiplayer game these days is consistent content updates over time. You know, monthly or bi-monthly or every couple of weeks or every couple of months at least. Everything has consistent content updates, and that's become a model that us old school gamers. Oh, I used to get my game and like maybe the community would mod some maps and stuff like that, but it's basically a must-have these days. At least it seems like it. So I don't mind the model as long as there is more content coming. Then the question is, how is that content going to be released? Is it gonna be an expansion pack once a year that gives you 6 new characters and 3 new maps?
That's the thing where I feel a lot of people are
Is it going to be for free?
upset.
Right.
Or they don't know yet, so they're upset about what they don't know.
But
Oh, you're going to release a
stated-
hero shop, huh?
here's why it's scary, right? Blizzard makes games, right? They also make expansions. Blizzard is so known for their expansions, right? World of Warcraft has a bunch of yearly or bi-yearly expansions. StarCraft, expansions. Diablo, expansions. Overwatch, I'm terrified that it's not going to be any different. We might see, because if it's a single purchase game, a year and a half from now, Overwatch, the Omni Crisis, right? Like here's like a something else. And in this, you're going to get like 6 new heroes and like 5 new maps. Do we split the community in half? Or
I'd be shocked.
I
I'd be
know they
shocked if
don't
they did
want to
that.
split the community,
Yeah.
but when you're doing an expansion model, you have so fewer options than if you were free to play.
But
And
what's the other model? Does it exist for a single purchase game?
I honestly think that
Cosmetics.
no matter what they do, they're going to make a ton of money. Like the marketing for this game is insane. All the animations, the story, the lore brings in so many people. The gameplay itself is so good. I think no matter what they do, they're going to have a lot of players. Like I'm not freaked out about the idea of expansions. I'm more freaked out about the idea of them not creating more content over time. They're going to do it. Like regardless of how it shapes up, they're going to do it.
Well, but that's what I mean though. Like we're talking about continued interest in a game.
Yeah.
If we're talking about expansion wise, if that's something they want to think in the future, that means we're not going to see new Overwatch content for a year.
Well, I mean,
until
you're
they make an
talking about
expansion in a
major
box,
expansions.
you know
You're
what I
talking about
mean?
major expansions. They can have DLCs. I mean, they can have different types of additional
Okay,
packs of
the point is I'm
content.
trying to make is that Blizzard is known for their expansions. All their games have them. Heroes of the Storm's the only one that doesn't have like the boxed expansions. You know what I mean?
but that introduces
It's not
a
single
new
purchase.
introduces a completely new, pay model for them. So I think right now on the table for Blizzard is anything. I think they're not going to necessarily continue with their history of pay models here. Because again, like I feel like they've broken that now with heroes, and they're more open to all kinds of things. And seeing different buying behaviors from the gaming demographic has affected them. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do stay with this type of just packaged content. There'll be definitely very little time between them, or not like a year, like expansions for StarCraft and Diablo and things like that.
Right.
Honestly,
Do they monetize it? Go ahead. Sorry.
well, my hope here is that they release new characters for free, and they continue to monetize via skins, new maps, new characters, all of that for free, skins. That'll make them a shit ton of money. It's Blizzard. Their art is amazing. Their characters are amazing. People are already invested in the lore. At BlizzCon, how much Overwatch cosplay did you see? It was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
just want to be able to
How about
sell
the merch,
a lot of
man?
characters.
God, the
You
merch
give
is
you
crazy,
give
too.
Winston a funny little hat, man. That shit will sell like hotcakes. And that's the
Yeah,
goddamn truth. So I mean,
True.
that's what I really hope happens. Like that's going to be what's best for the competitive community. Is obviously if everyone gets all the new characters, and I think it'll make them a shit ton of money as well. That would be
Yeah,
the hope.
agreed. Yeah, definitely. All right, well, I think that's a good wrap on that segment. We talked a good bit about the community.